Tom Birch squinted through the swirling dust storm, his hand gripping the hilt of his plasma blade. "Jack, did you hear that?" His voice, rough from years of shouting over battles, cut through the howling wind. The desolate landscape stretched endlessly, a barren expanse of sand and rock, with occasional remnants of ancient alien technology jutting out like forgotten relics. Jack Rivers, his younger brother, adjusted his visor and peered into the murky gloom. "Could be the wind," he replied, though his tone betrayed his uncertainty. Jack was the optimist, always seeing the best in situations that seemed devoid of hope. His technical skills had saved them more than once, but even he seemed rattled by this forsaken planet. As they trudged forward, the silhouette of a downed alien craft emerged from the haze. The vessel's sleek, otherworldly design was unmistakably advanced, a stark contrast to the rugged terrain. "We should check it out," Tom said, his instincts as a retired space marine kicking in. "There might be something useful." Jack nodded, and they approached cautiously. The craft's exterior was scorched and battered, evidence of a violent crash. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burnt metal and ozone. Tom's eyes scanned the wreckage, landing on a small figure slumped against the control panel. "Over here," Jack called, already moving towards the figure. It was an alien woman, her skin a shimmering blue marked with intricate patterns. She was unconscious, a gash on her forehead oozing dark blood. "She's alive, but barely." Tom hesitated, memories of past conflicts with alien forces flashing through his mind. Yet, something about her vulnerability struck a chord. "Help me get her out." Together, they carefully lifted her and carried her to a nearby cave, a temporary shelter from the relentless storm. As Jack tended to her wounds with their limited medical supplies, Tom stood guard at the cave entrance, eyes scanning the horizon. "Why are we helping her, Tom?" Jack asked, his hands steadied despite the grim task. Tom's gaze remained fixed on the storm. "Because if we don't, no one else will," he replied, a trace of old honor in his voice. "And we need answers." Hours passed, the storm raging outside. The alien woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Who are you?" she asked, her voice weak but clear. "I'm Tom. This is Jack." "We found you in the wreckage," Tom answered, keeping his tone neutral. "What happened?" She struggled to sit up, wincing in pain. "My name is Nilia. I was betrayed by my people, left for dead." Her eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and determination, met Tom's. "They're coming for me. For us." Tom's grip tightened on his blade. "Who's coming?" Nilia took a deep breath. "Morton's mercenaries. They allied with a rogue faction from my world. They're after a weapon hidden here, one that could destroy us all." The weight of her words settled over them like a shroud. Jack looked at Tom, his face pale. "What do we do?" Tom glanced at Nilia, then back at the stormy horizon. "We prepare, and we fight." The resolve in his voice was unyielding, a promise of the battles to come. As night fell, they fortified their shelter, the flicker of determination lighting their eyes. In this desolate land, an unexpected alliance was forged, and the fight for survival had just begun. Tom's heart pounded as the roar of engines grew louder. He peered out from the cave, eyes narrowed against the settling dust. "Morton's here," he muttered, the urgency in his voice palpable. Jack scrambled to his feet, hastily packing their gear. "What's the plan, Tom?" he asked, his usual wit replaced by a rare seriousness. Tom glanced at Nilia, who was still weak but alert. "We need to hide her and prepare for a fight," he decided. "Jack, help her get deeper into the cave. I'll set up a perimeter." Nilia nodded, struggling to her feet with Jack's support. "There's an old defense system near the entrance," she said, her voice strained but steady. "I can activate it if I get close enough." Tom gave a curt nod. "Do it. Jack, cover her. I'll hold them off as long as I can." They moved quickly, Nilia guiding Jack to a hidden console embedded in the rock. Tom took position at the cave entrance, his plasma blade and rifle at the ready. The storm had died down, leaving an eerie silence punctuated by the hum of approaching ships. The first mercenaries landed, disembarking with practiced efficiency. Tom recognized their uniforms and the insignia of Morton's private army. He took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. "Let's make this count," he whispered to himself. As the mercenaries advanced, Tom fired the first shot, a precise burst that took down the lead soldier. Chaos erupted as the mercenaries scattered, seeking cover. Tom moved swiftly, using the rocky terrain to his advantage, picking off enemies with calculated precision. Inside the cave, Nilia's fingers flew over the console, her eyes glowing with concentration. "Almost there," she murmured, the ancient system coming to life under her touch. Jack watched her nervously, glancing back at the entrance. "Hurry, Nilia. Tom can't hold them forever." With a final keystroke, the defense system hummed to life, shimmering energy barriers materializing around the cave entrance. Tom ducked behind cover just as the barriers activated, the mercenaries' plasma fire ricocheting off the glowing walls. "It worked!" Jack exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. Nilia sagged against the console, her strength depleted. "It won't hold them for long," she warned. "We need to find the weapon before they do." Tom joined them, his armor scorched from the battle. "Any idea where it might be?" he asked, his gaze intense. Nilia hesitated, her eyes distant as if sifting through ancient memories. "There's a hidden chamber deep within these caves," she revealed. "It's protected by traps and guards, but it's our best chance." Tom nodded grimly. "Then that's where we're headed. Jack, gather what supplies you can. We move out in 5. As they prepared to venture deeper into the labyrinthine caves, the weight of their mission settled upon them. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. With grim determination, they set forth, the echoes of battle fading behind them as they plunged into the unknown. Little did they know, the true test of their resolve lay ahead, waiting in the shadows of the ancient chamber. The weapon, a relic of unimaginable power, beckoned them forward, even as unseen dangers lurked in the depths. Their unlikely alliance would be pushed to its limits, and the bonds forged in the heat of battle would be tested like never before. The labyrinthine caves seemed to stretch on endlessly, their twisted paths illuminated only by the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the damp walls. Tom led the way, his steps sure and steady, while Jack and Nilia followed closely behind, their senses heightened by the oppressive darkness. "How much further?" Jack asked, his voice echoing through the narrow passages. Nilia consulted a holographic map emanating from her wrist device. "We're close," she replied, her eyes reflecting the eerie blue light. "The chamber should be just ahead." As they rounded a corner, the corridor widened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center stood an ancient structure, its surface etched with intricate symbols and glyphs. A sense of awe and trepidation filled the air as they approached, their footsteps echoing against the stone floor. "This is it," Nilia whispered, her voice tinged with reverence. "The Chamber of the Ancients." Tom studied the structure, his mind racing with possibilities. "Any idea how to get inside?" Nilia stepped forward, her fingers tracing the symbols. "These glyphs tell of a trial, a test of worthiness," she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Only those deemed worthy may enter." "Great," Jack muttered, his hand resting on his plasma pistol. More alien mumbo-jumbo. Tom shot him a warning glance before turning back to Nilia. "What kind of trial?" Before she could respond, a deep rumble filled the chamber, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The symbols on the structure began to glow, pulsing with an otherworldly light. Slowly, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark passageway. "Guess that answers that question," Tom said, his grip tightening on his rifle. "Stay sharp." We don't know what's waiting for us in there. As they stepped into the passageway, the air grew colder, a chill seeping into their bones. The walls were lined with more glyphs, their meanings lost to time. Tom activated his suit's illuminator, casting a pale beam of light ahead. "I don't like this," Jack whispered, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow. "It's too quiet." Nilia paused, her head tilted as if listening to a distant sound. "There's a presence here," she murmured, her voice taut with tension. "Something ancient and powerful." Tom's jaw clenched. "The weapon?" "Perhaps," Nilia replied, her face etched with uncertainty. "But there's something else, something, aware." As if in response to her words, a sudden gust of wind swept through the passageway, carrying with it a ghostly whisper. The words were unintelligible, but the tone was unmistakable, a warning, a challenge. "Did you hear that?" Jack asked, his voice tight with fear. Tom nodded, his eyes narrowing. "We're not alone." They pressed on, the whispers growing louder with each step. The passageway opened into another chamber, smaller than the first but no less impressive. In the center, hovering above a pedestal, was a pulsing orb of energy, the weapon they sought. "There it is," Nilia breathed, her eyes wide with awe. "The heart of the ancients." But as they approached the pedestal, a figure materialized before them, a spectral guardian, its form shimmering with ethereal light. It spoke, its voice a thunderous echo that reverberated through the chamber. "Halt, intruders," it commanded, its gaze piercing through them. "None may claim the heart without proving their worth." Tom stepped forward, his chin raised in defiance. "We've come too far to turn back now," he declared. "What must we do to prove ourselves?" The guardian studied them, its eyes seeming to peer into their very souls. "3 trials await you," it intoned. "Tests of courage, wisdom, and sacrifice. Only by passing all 3 may you claim the heart and the power it holds." Jack glanced at Tom, uncertainty etched on his face. "Are we really doing this?" Tom looked to Nilia, saw the determination in her eyes, and nodded. "We have no choice," he said. "The fate of worlds depends on us." And so, with heavy hearts and steeled resolve, they faced the Guardian, ready to embark on the trials that would determine not only their fate but the fate of the galaxy itself. The first trial awaited, a crucible of courage that would test the limits of their bravery. In the face of an impossible task, they could only cling to the hope that their unlikely bond would see them through, that the compassion and trust forged in the heat of battle would light their way through the darkness ahead. The first trial loomed before them, a shimmering portal that seemed to beckon with an eerie light. Tom, Jack, and Nilia exchanged glances, each trying to mask their trepidation behind a veneer of determination. "Remember," Tom said, his voice low and steady, "we're in this together. No matter what happens, we have each other's backs." Jack nodded, a flicker of his usual humor returning to his eyes. "Just like old times, brother." Nilia placed a hand on each of their shoulders, her touch a silent affirmation of their bond. "We can do this," she said, her gaze locked on the portal. "For the sake of our worlds, we must." With a deep breath, they stepped through the shimmering veil, only to find themselves standing on a narrow ledge overlooking a vast chasm. The air was thick with the acrid scent of sulfur, and the heat was oppressive, pressing down upon them like a physical weight. "Welcome to the trial of courage," a disembodied voice echoed through the chamber. "To pass, you must cross the chasm and reach the other side. But beware, for the path is treacherous, and the consequences of failure are dire." Tom peered over the edge, his eyes widening at the sight of the bubbling lava far below. "We'll have to jump," he said, his jaw set in grim determination. Jack balked, his face paling. "Are you insane? We'll never make it." Nilia studied the ledge, her keen eyes picking out a series of small, barely visible platforms that seemed to float in midair. "There," she said, pointing. "A path, hidden from view. We must have faith in ourselves and each other." Tom nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. One step at a time, he said, taking Nilia's hand in his own. Together. Jack hesitated for a moment, fear warring with trust in his eyes. Then, with a shaky breath, he took Tom's other hand. Together, he echoed, his voice barely a whisper. And so, they began their perilous journey, leaping from platform to platform, the heat searing their skin and the lava hissing hungrily below. Each jump was a test of faith, a moment of terror followed by a rush of relief as they landed safely on the other side. Halfway across the chasm, a sudden tremor shook the chamber, causing the platforms to shift and sway. Jack stumbled, his foot slipping off the edge. But Tom was there, his grip fierce and unyielding, hauling his brother back to safety. "I've got you," Tom panted, his face slick with sweat. "I won't let you fall." Jack nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I know," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I trust you." They pressed on, the end of the path drawing ever closer. But as they neared the final platform, a gust of searing wind blasted across the chasm, threatening to knock them from their precarious perch. Nilia cried out, her grip slipping. But Jack was there, his arm wrapping around her waist, anchoring her to the platform. "Hold on," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. Together, they battled the gale, inching forward until at last, they reached the other side. They collapsed onto the cool stone, their chests heaving with exertion and relief. "Well done," the voice of the guardian echoed through the chamber. "You have passed the trial of courage. But 2 more challenges await. Rest now, for the trial of wisdom will test not only your minds but your hearts as well." As they lay there, catching their breath, Tom felt a swell of pride and affection for his companions. They had faced the first trial and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. But he knew that the hardest tests were yet to come. The trial of wisdom would challenge them in ways they could scarcely imagine, forcing them to confront not only their own doubts and fears but the very nature of their quest itself. And looming beyond that, the final trial, the trial of sacrifice. Tom shuddered to think what that might entail, but he pushed the thought aside. They would face it when the time came, together, as they had everything else. For now, they had earned a moment of rest, a chance to gather their strength and steel their resolve for the challenges ahead. And as they lay there, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, Tom knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it as one, bound by a love and loyalty that transcended the boundaries of species and worlds. The second trial beckoned, a glowing doorway that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. With a deep breath, they rose to their feet, ready to face whatever lay beyond. The trial of wisdom awaited, and with it, the next step on their journey to claim the heart of the ancients and save the galaxy from destruction. Redemption and rebirth. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with an intensity that seemed to vibrate the very fabric of reality. Nilia stood at its center, her transformed body now a living conduit of ancient technological power that merged her biological essence with the most advanced systems humanity and her own civilization had ever conceived. Tom and Jack watched from behind a reinforced energy barrier, their bodies bearing the scars of their incredible journey. The chamber they stood in was located deep beneath the surface of what was once a barren planet, now revealed to be an ancient repository of technological secrets that could rewrite the understanding of sentient existence. "The weapon was never a weapon," Nilia spoke, her voice resonating with multiple harmonic frequencies. "It was a restoration protocol, a means to heal entire civilizations on the brink of collapse." Jack's computational systems worked overtime, parsing the flood of information streaming from Nilia's transformation. "The neural pathways are creating a quantum entanglement that spans multiple dimensional planes," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Tom's hand instinctively reached for his plasma blade, a habit ingrained from years of combat. But the weapon felt obsolete now, a relic of a paradigm that was rapidly dissolving in the face of Nilia's metamorphosis. Morton's mercenaries, those who had pursued them across star systems, were now nothing more than a distant memory. The final confrontation had not been the apocalyptic battle they had anticipated, but a moment of profound revelation. The rogue faction that had betrayed Nilia, seeking to weaponize the ancient technology, had been dismantled not through violence, but through a complex network of quantum information transmission that Nilia had initiated. Entire command structures collapsed, not from external attack, but from internal recalibration of core ideological systems. "We are witnessing the birth of a new form of conflict resolution," Nilia explained, her body now partially translucent, streams of data and light flowing through her form. "Not through destruction, but through understanding." Jack's analytical mind struggled to comprehend the full implications. "You're essentially reprogramming systemic conflict at its fundamental level?" Nilia's smile was both alien and profoundly compassionate. "Conflict is often a result of limited perspective. By expanding the perceptual framework, we can transform antagonism into collaboration." Tom, the hardened warrior, found himself experiencing something he had not felt in decades: hope. The endless cycles of violence he had witnessed throughout his military career were being rewritten before his eyes. The quantum chamber began to pulse with a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the heartbeats of everyone present. Holographic representations of multiple civilizations, some known, many unknown, began to emerge, their intricate connections becoming visible like a vast, living neural network. "The weapon you sought was actually a bridge," Nilia continued. "A technological empathy generator that could translate the deepest traumas and motivations of different species into a language of mutual understanding." Jack's systems detected massive data transfers occurring simultaneously across multiple communication spectrums. "The information transfer is unprecedented. We're talking about a complete restructuring of interspecies diplomatic frameworks." Tom's perspective, forged in the crucible of military conflict, was fundamentally challenged. The solutions he had known, combat, strategic withdrawal, tactical negotiation, seemed primitive compared to the quantum diplomacy unfolding before him. As the transformation reached its culmination, Nilia's form began to disperse, not in destruction, but in a deliberate, organized distribution. Fragments of her consciousness would seed multiple planetary systems, carrying the potential for healing and understanding. "My gratitude to you both transcends words," she told Tom and Jack. "Your initial act of compassion, saving a stranger without knowing her origin or intention, was the quantum trigger that initiated this restoration." The chamber's energy began to stabilize, the wild fluctuations giving way to a harmonious, pulsating rhythm. Jack's computational systems were recording every millisecond, knowing that the data would revolutionize multiple scientific disciplines. Tom, for the first time in his life, felt a sense of purpose that extended beyond survival. The warrior's path he had walked was transforming into something more nuanced, more hopeful. As the final waves of transformation receded, the chamber grew quiet. The barren planet they had crash-landed on was now a testament to unexpected transformation, a symbol of how a single act of compassion could ripple across entire civilizations. Jack looked at his brother, a rare smile breaking through his typically analytical demeanor. "We did something remarkable, didn't we?" Tom's response was a simple nod, but within it contained volumes of emotion, wonder, respect, and a newfound understanding of the universe's complexity. The story of Tom, Jack, and Nilia would become a whispered legend among multiple species, a reminder that true resolution comes not from the strength of one's weapons, but from the depth of one's compassion. As twin suns rose over the transformed landscape, a new chapter in cosmic understanding had begun.